and Helena, Samodurova, co-founder of Incooling.
You can sit down, guys. Wowee, I can't see any of you. If you're standing at the back, there are seats at the front here. You don't need to be shy. We don't bite. It'll be fine. Right. Enjoy, everybody. Mike Butcher from TechCrunch. Oh, wow. It's like a lounge, isn't it? We're sitting down. We'll be here for a while.
Well, just to pretend that it's just the two of us.
What do we do? Sit on the edge? I don't know what to do. What do you want to do? Relax. I'll relax. All I need now is a cigar and a glass of whiskey. Everyone, it's fantastic to be back. I have not been back at TechChill since 2020. Do you remember 2020? No, you all have post-traumatic stress disorder. So do I. I came to TechChill, and then someone would have told me that, somebody's getting a cold or something. I was like, okay. Anyway, back to London. So that was an interesting sojourn, but it's great to be back here in Riga. I am excited. And Helena Samodurova from Incooling, it's a delight to meet you. We have not met before. You are a founder of Incooling. And Incooling, these chairs are hilarious. I love the color, but they're, wow. Incooling actually appeared on TechCrunch's stage back in, when was it? 2020? 2022, sorry.
In the middle of the post-traumatic stress.
In the middle of the post-traumatic stress disorder post-COVID. Yeah. So, and you pitched on our stage. What was that experience like?
Honestly, I can't remember.
You can't remember. Everybody says that because talk about PTSD.
I know. I remember coming on and I remember coming off, but anything in the middle I have to watch in the YouTube video because I can't remember for myself.
Did you do the pitching?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. It's quite a big experience, isn't it? Because we also train you how to pitch on TechCrunch's stage.
There is so much build-up. It's insane. You get trained by the best in the world, and it's honestly so amazing, I think. Even what struck me the most was how they ask the questions. So they'll be like, well, you're a woman in the tech space, you know, there's not that many of us. You will have kind of these closed, directed questions at you that are meant to fail you instead of asking open-ended questions that they do to male counterparts. And learning that was like, oh, wow, they rig you at every single corner that they can. And it was really nice of TechCrunch to be able to bring that to the surface and train me and learn me how to do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I won't do too much advertising, but yeah, it's pretty good, and it's also entirely free, which is quite cool.
Yeah, so if you haven't applied, go. It's a really cool experience.
You should 100%, and we'll be there in the autumn, in the fall, in San Francisco again, 10,000 people, so come along and join us. Now, you began, what I think is fascinating about your journey is you began developing Incooling's technology. This is server cooling, isn't it? A very sophisticated version of server cooling in 2018 with your co-founder Rudy, correct? And you met at something that was in Eindhoven, in the Dutch city of Eindhoven, and you also partnered with CERN in Switzerland on this cooling technology. What was that whole experience like? Did that really help the kind of product development?
Yeah, so maybe before I answer that question, I'll give a bit of a backstory to the audience. I can't see, but I'm assuming it's there.
They're all there. Don't worry, they're all there.
You can cheer a little bit, then I can hear you. Yeah, there we go.
Guys, come and sit at the front. There's lots of seats. Come and. It's just a friendly fireside chat.
I think I only heard like 10 people cheering. Is that all there is? Amazing, yes. So I'm from Liepaja, so I'm a fellow Latvian, and that's why they've invited me back, I presume. I've been living abroad for 15 years now, and I lived in the Netherlands since 2018, so 6 years ago, and that's when I moved to Eindhoven to a startup accelerator. So that's where your question comes from. I started working on an innovation and impact project, which is what I wanted to do, and by accident, I started a company. It was never my intention, to be honest. I thought I'd hate it, and I was scared in every step, but it turned out to be one of the best experiences. One of the hardest ones, of course, but one of the best ones of my life in terms of personal and professional growth. The thing is, when you start a company on your own, it's very difficult. So I had a chance to work in a startup accelerator, and you're exposed to different ecosystems, investors, partners, one of them being CERN. So they were part of the ecosystem there. And the way we started is we had access to their technology, and we had to commercialize their technology, and that's how our business was born.
And it's a very interesting journey because you obviously look deeply into the technology and you came up with a. Just give us I think from in your own words, give us a little bit of a description of what you came up with and what Incooling does.
So in very simple terms, our mission is to cool down the planet one computer server at a time. And what we developed was basically fridge on a chip.
A what?
A fridge.
A fridge on a chip.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, that's the shortest pitch I've ever heard, I think.
It took me years to develop that.
Well, it does help. I must admit, when entrepreneurs pitch me, I do want them to make it quite short. It does help, doesn't it? And so you've done this, and you've actually raised quite a lot of money, haven't you?
Yeah, we've raised over, I think, 6.5 million in private subsidies and personal investment, which for a first-time founder, first time in tech space, first time doing anything was quite a big achievement, I'd say.
So 2022, and 3 years later, 2025. What's it look like? What does the business look like right now?
So maybe to take a step back, how many people, well, everyone's in the tech space, I assume, because you're here in the tech chill, right? Right?
If you're in the movie business, you might be at the wrong conference.
Yeah. So we built a cooling system to accelerate how chips perform. So currently, the biggest issue is energy efficiency in data centers. You can't cool them enough, and if they're not cool enough, they don't run fast enough. So basically, you've bought a Ferrari, but you can only take it for shopping and groceries. Yeah, it's not what you bought it for, right? And mainly it's because engine's overheating. So what we developed is basically a cooling system, like a fridge, that you can put on the engine, on chip in this instance, to make it go 100% and do it, whilst doing it, actually use less fuel, less energy in this instance. What the business looks like today, well, we started pre-COVID, we started 2018. At the time, we had to educate people why it's important. What the hell is a data center? What is that? Why is it important? Why is the energy efficiency important? Fast forward, COVID hit, everybody's on Zoom. Zoom is frozen. People leave meetings because you can't do it because it's overheated. And then they started realizing, oh, crap, there's a lot of energy being used. Businesses moving more and more online. We have to do something about it. And now fast forward to 2025, people know about it. I talk about it. People actually come up to me and have a nice, decent conversation about the energy efficiency aspect. But when it comes to corporations, it takes a long time to implement. So we tried as a company to become part of the supply chain, to be one of the companies that do the cooling systems and work together with companies like Intel, Dell, HP, NVIDIA, all of the big guys. But to be honest, we're a very small company, and even though we had very big partners...
It must have been very interesting going in to talk to these enormous companies with your technology. I mean, what were those conversations like?
People are people, no matter where you go, whether it's a high VP or an engineer that's just started. If you know how to work with people, you'll be able to get quite far. So I learned that it didn't matter who you were, just be yourself, be kind and believe in what you do, and that'll take you much further than any knowledge or any university you've ever been to.
Well, so did you found that your approach was more important than maybe even sometimes the underlying kind of technology? It was more like, how were you going to work with the companies?
Absolutely. So we had a really cool, and we have very cool technology, don't get me wrong, but engineers, most of the engineers, you can't pitch your product because it's too technical, people don't understand it. And we would be having these meetings with these VPs of these big companies, and everybody would be stressing out. It's like, oh, don't be late, or prepare this or that, or, you have to be very respectful. And I'm like, well, we're always respectful. Whether it's a secretary or a VP, it doesn't really matter. And them seeing us so calm and us declining meetings because we said, yeah, well, we can't do it because we have something else going on. And us standing our ground, it was like, how dare you? And we're like, well, if we do it, we're going to do it the right way. We're not going to sacrifice ourselves for it. And that was the biggest learning. It's just always be yourself and stand your ground.
Did you find that you were learning entrepreneurship on the job?
Absolutely.
And give us an example of kinds of things that happened to you.
I don't think you can learn entrepreneurship in the classroom anyway. So, for example, funding. Funding is a very interesting one. You have a mission, you're so passionate, and you think, okay, well, we have a solution that will literally save the world. They're going to care about that, right? right? And then like a meme pops up in your head. You go to these financial meetings and you go to funds and you ask for loans, and then the things they care about is so different. So for example, we had to take out a loan during COVID to sort of bridge us from the gap until we got new financing. The bank at the time, they wanted to make sure that if we failed, they could take everything, including our floors, which were worth like just a couple of £100. And I'm like, that's what you're concerned about? Not that we might not make it and might not save the world? And it was a kind of a reality check all the time. As an entrepreneur, it's like you have the dream, you have the drive, and then just reality kicks in all the time.
I see. So, and how did you and your co-founder get on during that kind of scale-up period?
So we got very lucky because when we started, I didn't know him, neither he knew me. I was 23, he was 20, so very young people. And we got very lucky because we came to be...
You started in 2018, was
it?
Yeah.
We were very lucky because we are very compatible in terms of skills. So what I can't do, he can, but we didn't know at the time. And looking back, I'm like, it could have gone so wrong, but luckily it didn't. And as you go through... Entrepreneurship felt like a real relationship, like, or maybe some people to refer to it like a marriage. You go through everything together, you have to make all decisions together. You employ people, they sort of become your kids, like you start feeling responsible for them because you are. In our case, we also took a bit more care for them because they came from abroad, first time in the country, and I could relate with that, having moved there myself. And it was a heavy burden, but you really learn a lot about each other. And I think that helped the business because every time we had a difficult business decision, we knew we could take it because on a personal level, the bond was strong.
Just remind us who your major investors were again?
It was a German company, German defense company, Rheinmetall. We also had investors, a private angel, and a couple of sponsors from just the Dutch government side.
And did you find that as young entrepreneurs that they treated you well or gently perhaps as young entrepreneurs?
They treated us very well, but the only main difference was they were not used to funding startups. So like with the German companies or the governments, they used to seeing financial models, or we're in the tech space. So everyone who is in the tech space, you'll know that it takes a really long time for the product, in deep tech, to get your product onto the market. This is very long sales cycles. That's what they seem to forget. And we're a very small company, so we would do the investment round, I'll do the due diligence, and I have all these compliance documents, and we're like, 80% of the stuff they required, we just did not have, because we don't need to, we're a small company. There was no need for that, and it was a giant waste of time in that sense, because they also had to learn that we can't ask these questions because there's no answers to them. But on their system, because they've done it always, it was like, yeah, unless you have a tick, we can't give you the money. And I'm like, yeah, well, then the tick is not going to happen. Goodbye. And then that's another example. We said, well, we'll just walk away because we can't give you what we don't have. And then they're like, okay, well, we're in too deep now. We have to. So we kind of turned the tables, and then they came forward to help us.
And so you got to a certain point. You raised about $6 or $7 million. When was the last round? Was it?
It was in 2022, I think. It was right after the TechCrunch. I was still in San Francisco. I was in that hotel room, dead after the conference.
Tell us what happened. Tell us what happened.
As I'm preparing for the conference, which was the biggest conference of my life at the time, you're stressed, you've done your pitch, you're prepared for the questions and answers, and you're in San Francisco, the first time, you're like, oh my God, like, took the tram, it's amazing, it's like a movie, and it's fantastic. We're in this hotel on like the 15th floor, you can see the entire San Francisco, the financial district, the sun is shining, life is just amazing, and you're like, so stressed, you haven't slept because you have a big thing going on, and then back home, you have to, your company's about to go, like, have €0 on the bank account, and you're like, yeah, but you need to submit these documents, we need to have these things I've just discussed, otherwise we won't get the money, and the people are waiting, and they have like 15 missed calls an hour from lawyers, from due diligence people, from everywhere, trying to figure out, okay, where are we in the process, have we got it, have we not, and it burns you out. You're so stressed at that time because you're doing it for the first time, so you don't know that it's going to be all right. Nobody knows that. You believe what they tell you. So I think it's like 5 PM. So we've done the pitch. I've come back to the hotel, ordered some food, scheduled a call with Germany just to make sure that everything's in order. And then that was it. They said it's done. And they're like, what do you mean it's done? It's like, yeah, the money's on your account.
Bingo.
And you're like, what? And you open it, and then you see it, and you're like, you're in shock. Like, you've been working for it so long that when it actually happened, you just couldn't believe it. All of a sudden, you felt like your life had no purpose anymore, but in a good way. Like, it was just very baffling experience. It's a day that I still remember very clearly.
Presumably, it wasn't the pitching that made them sign the check. That was all in process.
That was already in process. It was a nice cherry on the cake. So then I was like, my next thing was like, oh my God, how am I going to announce it? Because I was also in charge of marketing at the time. I'm like, okay, well, I have a TechCrunch, I have amazing photos, I have press releases. So there's like amazing marketing campaign I can deal with that, in San Francisco with Silicon Valley and everything around it. And then we have this major investment. Like, we've raised millions, we've worked on it tirelessly for 6 months, and it all happened at the same time. It's like, oh my God, can't have it been like 3 months later, and then I would have like a nice marketing campaign for every 3 months. No, it's like, oh, everything happened at the same time.
Amazing, all coming together.
Yeah, it's just it goes to show that you work hard for things, and just nothing happens, and then one day, everything happens.
So you obviously it's a fantastic story. So you got to that sort of point, but then something you started to make decisions and have some ideas about maybe taking a different direction compared to perhaps some of the average startup journey, didn't you? Tell us about what the next phase is.
Yeah, so for the audience, for a bit of context, we went through the full startup journey. We had all the ups and all the downs. What I described was a nice up, but we also had quite a few downs. And one down happened last year where we realized we couldn't get further investment what we needed to because of other reasons that had absolutely nothing to do with us, prevented us from getting the investment that we planned on. So we decided that we couldn't continue in the way we were working, not without the investment. And we felt that the way the company was going, with having a lot of people, many partners, really scaling up, it wasn't really for us. It wasn't just the type of people me and Rudy, my co-founder, were. And we decided that it was the best thing for everybody if we scaled down to sort of a really small team and really changing our ambitions. Because, when you start raising investment, you have shareholder obligations, you have a lot of things that need to be done that really don't allow you to focus on your product or the thing that you loved in the first place. And then we had this hard decision, okay, letting people go. The people that they've become friends to this very day, and we're having dinner next week, for example. But it was all very hard.
And what did your investors say?
Well, we showed that it was hard to get a business case with it, so they agreed. So we had a very nice, natural end to things, and because they couldn't give extra investment, they also left. So we had no issues in that front, so we were able to downscale.
So did you send some of the money back, or retain it, or did they write it off, or how did it work?
We distributed whatever we had back to whomever we could give,
right?
Just to keep it as fair as we possibly could, with the intention that if we grow again, then we'll give the proceeds, or we'll give the name, or whatever it is at that time to the people that still helped in that process and deserved it. But we just wanted to try on our own again, not with investor ties or just any responsibility beyond our own. So as a company, we really wanted to be at the top level. So we wanted to be the next Intel, the next AMD, the next NVIDIA sort of thing. That was our ambition. And we had the partners, and we had a lot of things for it, but except that it just wasn't in our character to do that. So we decided...
You felt it wasn't in your character as founders, or as a company, or what do you mean by that?
It was the way we wanted the company to run. We couldn't see it working on a large scale as founders and as a company. So we felt that maybe it's best that we collaborate rather than trying to compete with others. Let's work together. And we're happy if we're just a small fish in a large supply chain, but because sometimes you need to be small, but you can still make very big impact. You don't have to be very big to do big things.
Sometimes founders, they go, you know what, I've had a great journey, I'm going to take a step back. You talk to the investors, they say, great, we'll take it, that's fine, we'll take it from here. You retain maybe a board seat or advisory or something. You retain a stake of the company, they get a new CEO who's maybe experienced in scaling companies up. Did you think about that option?
We did, but it was difficult to get the business case in the market for us because of the complexity of the industry. It's an old industry. Changing things is very difficult, and without very, very large investments, we just couldn't see a way to do it. And by that point, we were just also tired, and we said, okay,
in order to just take on a massive industry, you need enormous amounts of capital. It's an big incumbent industry. So, and you felt you'd done the journey.
We felt that we did everything that we could, and we felt that for it to continue the way we would feel comfortable with, we would better take a step back than rather. The thing is, when you give something you've created to somebody else, then you have no control over it, and then it kind of lingers around, and you have. We didn't want to take that chance, and we just said, okay, we've had a nice run. Everyone's really appreciated. We've given people jobs, we've helped them, buy their first homes, have their first children. Those are the things that really mattered at the end, and anything that we can do after it, it's just an extra bonus.
So in a way, it was kind of like the opposite of that scene in the Silicon Valley comedy show where the guy's at the bar and he's raised too much money and now he's had to take a down round and he's like, oh no, what have I done, kind of thing. So you kind of went through a different parallel universe.
We just slipped through the cracks.
You slipped through the cracks. Well done. It's awesome. That's actually a very mature thing. Even though you were young founders, it's a very mature attitude and a mature decision to make.
I think we're two old couple people in young people's bodies. That's how we feel.
I think it's a wonderful story. Thank you. This collaborative. Does it quickly define this collaborative approach? You're not, instead of scaling and stuff, you're obviously still running the company. So what's it going to be doing?
Well, we'll still continue developing on the technology. Technology is there, IP is there, all the knowledge. There's nobody that knows better about data center cooling than us. I'm absolutely sure about that. And that will not go anywhere. So we have all the partners on our speed dial, and all the people still want to, even though they work at large corporates and they, as individuals, can't do anything about it, they want to see it succeed in any way possible. So we'll just explore different avenues. We don't know what's there. World is wide. So maybe we'll go open source, make it available to engineers. Maybe we'll still manage to make a business case out of it. Maybe there's a partner here that thinks it's very cool and wants to have the best cooling system in the world, then, we're happy to talk, but we just want to do the right thing. Very interesting.
Very interesting. I think it's an unusual direction that I don't often see in startups. And are you developing R&D as well? Are you doing more R&D?
We have been for the last 5-6 years. With the downsizing, we've sort of put a stop to that for the moment because it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And we don't have that. But we have developed it in different ways.
So presumably, now that you're taking this approach, do you have more time on your hands? How involved in the business are you going to be?
This gives a lot more time to sort of recover, because as every founder will know, it takes a lot of you, and if you don't have a balance in your life, it can burn you out. I've definitely also experienced some symptoms of that myself. I'm a Latvian, and I love the culture we have here, and I'd love to spend more time. That's why I'm also here in Latvia now, to spend more time with local people, learning about the challenges here, and maybe sharing my knowledge. I'm also working on a movie project about Latvian culture, our singing and song dance festival, so completely something different. But that all sort of ties into the things I believe, which is, global impact. You can do it in many different ways, whether it's, making a really cool cooling system and saving a bunch of energy, or maybe working on a movie project that inspires people to be their best selves. It's the common denominator is the same.
I see. So you're going to broaden your interests and work on some other things as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And you're retaining an interest and still being involved in cooling?
Absolutely.
And tell us a little bit more about your personal journey. You're obviously a female founder. I mean, sometimes I'm not. It's kind of sometimes a bit strange to concentrate on that, but because there are so few women in the tech industry, often you have your own journey that's different to the male journey. What's been your journey, and what about entrepreneurship, and what do you feel about that journey?
From a female perspective?
Sure. Or
my personal?
Or whatever you want.
Well, you think you know something and then you realize you know nothing. I think that's with every experience. As a girl in space, I would say there was some couple of really hard reality checks. I live in Netherlands. It's in a relatively progressive country with terms of equality and things like that. But even there are a lot of things to be improved. Especially when you go to these board meetings, you'll often be the only woman there. And no matter how nice they are, that female-male energy, if you start... My journey was really starting feeling the energies of people. And there is really a difference between when there's a lot of women in the room and men. And no matter how hard men try, you can never be a woman. I mean, it's just what it is. And recognizing the values that people bring in that was very eye-opening to me, and also saw why it's such a challenging world, because the industry is primarily male-driven. So things like caring about sustainability and energy efficiency in the world and other people, it comes a little bit more, I think, naturally from women's perspective than men is more like making a business case happen. And you need both to make it work, but I think the balance in there was a little bit off from my perspective.
Do you think that in the era of Trump and anti-DEI and the cancellation of sustainable projects in the US, all the news that's coming out of the United States at the moment, do you think that will affect entrepreneurial and startup culture in the next few years?
I don't think so.
Why?
I think entrepreneurs is something that you become a lot of the times out of necessity because you need to. That's just how you are as a person. Those policies might not make it favorable for you to do one thing or another, but I don't think it'll stop entrepreneurship as a whole. It just might redirect it to different kind of projects. I mean, Trump is just one aspect. There's so many things happening in the world that could, like the wars, that could be stopping things, but people still try and get up. That's just in our nature.
So you think that it's not going to affect things? It's kind of more like culture war rather than it's a bit. Do you feel that it's a little bit divorced from reality? Is that what you're trying to say?
I think it's just in people's nature to start and try new things and change the things. And the policies are just going to either make it better or worse. They're going to either help or not. But the inherent need to do that, it'll still be there. And
obviously, you started Incooling because you're very passionate about the environment. And global sustainability. Do you think that push towards sustainability will continue in the industry, or that other things will happen?
Absolutely. I mean, before I started Incooling, I did a degree on oceanography, so I have many wide interests. And one thing I learned is that if you have a great product, it'll always find its way to the market. If there will be a problem in the nature, it'll always make itself known through storms or hurricanes and, the climate change issues we've had. So even if we don't focus it on it, it'll make itself shown, and we'll have to adhere.
You've already said that you're very passionate about Latvia and the Baltics. We were discussing backstage, actually, about the history of the culture and the language. You're involved in movie projects now, and other things. Obviously, you're quite a Renaissance woman, shall we say. You have a varied range of interests. What would be your sort of message to an entrepreneur who was your age, when very early 20s, starting out now in 2025? Would you do things the same, differently? What advice would you give them, especially if you're perhaps from this country as well?
I had the chance of being in a conference last week on the new entrepreneurs in Latvia, and the message I gave there is going to be the same I'm giving now. Is really focused on finding the balance in life. I think that was the most valuable lesson for me. Whether it's in entrepreneurship, whether it's what you want to do with life, your relationships, try to look more inwards than outwards and seeing what's happening in the world, because it's easy to see, okay, there's an AI, let me start an AI startup. Let me try to catch the wave. Do that you're actually passionate about it, so that it comes from within. Don't focus on it because the market says, oh, it's not now a good time to do that. Try to look inside. What is it that you really feel that brings balance to you? And try to follow that. And maybe the situation in the world, like maybe with Trump's policies, doesn't help you in that moment, but try to develop that inner fire, because at some point it'll make sense. And that's something I didn't do, and that's what I would do differently if I was at that age. But having said that, you all have to make mistakes. Otherwise, if you did it all right from the beginning, it wouldn't be the same.
Helena Samodurova, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. It was really touching you.
Thanks, everyone. My name is Mike Butcher from TechCrunch, and I shall see you at TechChill. Thank you.
Woo. Woo.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Helena. It was really a great story.